This is on chapter 26, and chapter 26 is on fluid, electrolyte, and acid-base balance. So this matters because understanding the process of fluid, electrolyte, and acid-base balance, as well as the lab tests that evaluate those values, will help you correctly interpret your patient's test results. So we're going to move into talking about body fluid compartments, and that's pretty much what this whole talk is going to be on. And we start off by talking about body water content. So infants are 73% or more water. They have low body fat and low bone mass. Adult males are about 60% water. Adult females are about 50% water. And this is because they have higher fat content and less skeletal muscle mass. Now, adipose tissue is the least hydrated of all. And the total body water in adults averages about 40 liters, and water content declines to about 45% in old age. So, what this means is body water content is going to be dependent upon age, gender, skeletal muscle mass, the fat mass. There are two main fluid compartments: intracellular fluid compartment, or ICF. This is the fluid inside of the cells, and this is about 2/3 of body fluid. And then we have extracellular fluid compartment, and there are two main extracellular fluid compartments outside of the cells, and they're going to account for 1/3 of total body fluid. There's plasma. There's about 3 liters of plasma, and then interstitial fluid, and there's about 12 liters of interstitial fluid. And this is going to be the fluid found between cells and the spaces between cells. Also, a number of other things are considered interstitial fluid, like lymph, cerebral spinal fluid, the humors of the eye, synovial fluid, serous fluid, and gastrointestinal secretions. So this is just showing we have our total body water volume of about 40 liters, which is about 60% of body weight. 20% of body weight is going to come from extracellular fluid, which is about 15 liters. And then 40% of body weight is going to come from intracellular fluid, and this is about 25 liters of fluid. Water is known as the universal solvent, and solutes are substances dissolved in water. And solutes are classified as either non-electrolytes or electrolytes. And we have non-electrolytes are most of them are organic molecules, and they do not dissociate in water. And what that means is they do not kind of split apart into different components. They stay together. Examples of this are going to be glucose, lipids, creatinine, and urea, and no charged particles are created. Electrolytes, on the other hand, do dissociate into ions in water. And if you guys remember all the way back to ions, these are going to be charged particles. And examples are going to be inorganic salts, all acids and bases, some proteins. Ions conduct electrical current, and they have greater osmotic power than non-electrolytes, and they have a greater ability to cause fluid shifts due to the ability to dissociate into two or more ions. So, for example, sodium chloride is going to dissociate into the cation sodium and the anion chloride. And so this is two particles. We have magnesium chloride, which will dissociate into magnesium, and then two chloride ions. And so this is three particles, whereas a glucose does not dissociate, and so it's just one particle. Electrolyte concentrations are expressed in milliequivalents per liter, and this is a measure of electrical charge per liter of solution. And this is an equation down here. I'm not going to ask you to work anything out on this, so I just wanted you to know what milliequivalents per liter were in case you came across that in your reading. And then we have a comparison of extracellular and intracellular fluids. So each fluid compartment has a distinctive pattern of electrolytes. What this means is that intracellular fluid and extracellular fluid they have different major cations, different major anions. So we'll go ahead and look at that. With extracellular fluid, the electrolyte contents are all similar except for higher protein and lower chloride content of plasma. The major cation is going to be sodium, and the major anion is going to be chloride. And remember, cations are going to be ions with positive charge, and anions are ions with negative charge. Then we have intracellular fluid. This is going to contain more soluble proteins than plasma. There's low sodium and chloride. The major cation is potassium, and the major anion is monohydrogen phosphate. Electrolytes are most abundant solutes in fluid, which means that there's the largest number of them. And they're going to determine most chemical and physical reactions. But the bulk of dissolved solutes, what takes up the most space, consists of proteins, phospholipids, cholesterol, and triglycerides. So if you recall what we just went over, we have sodium, and this is going to be a major cation in blood plasma and interstitial fluid. And then look at down here, potassium. This is the major cation in intracellular fluid. Osmotic and hydrostatic pressures regulate the continuous exchange and mixing of fluids. So water is going to move along its osmotic gradients, which means that if there's more water on one side than there is on the other, water is going to tend to move to the side where there's less water because it's going to move along the osmotic gradient. All body fluid osmolality is almost always equal. So this means that intracellular and extracellular fluid is going to have the same osmolality. Now, it may not consist of the same electrolytes, but the osmolality is going to be equal. A change in solute concentration in any compartment leads to a net water flow. So if the extracellular fluid osmolality increases, then water is going to leave the cell. And again, that's because that means that there's more solutes outside the cell than there are inside, which means there's more water inside the cell than there is outside. So water wants to leave the cell. If there is a decrease in extracellular fluid osmolality, water will enter the cell. Now, if this, for whatever reason, you're struggling with this, then go back and look up hypertonic, hypotonic, isotonic. Exchanges between plasma and interstitial fluid occurs across capillary walls. And just fluid is just going to leak from the arterial end of the capillary. It's reabsorbed at the venual end. And we went over this in like chapter 19. And then whatever's left in the interstitial fluid is picked up by the lymphatic system and it's returned to the blood. The exchanges between interstitial fluid and intracellular fluid occur across the cell membrane. And this is going to be a two-way osmotic flow of water. Ions will move selectively either in or out of the cell. However, nutrients, waste, and gases have a unidirectional flow. So we can look at oxygen. Oxygen is going to flow in one direction. Okay, here we go. It's going to go from the lungs to the blood to the interstitial fluid into the cells. Just like with oxygen, we have CO2 is going to go from the cell to the interstitial fluid to the blood plasma to the lungs. Nutrients from the GI tract to the blood to the interstitial fluid to the cell. Water and ions are moving in both directions. We see this here and here with the kidneys and with the GI tract. And then nitrogenous waste are going to move from the cell to the interstitial fluid, to the blood plasma, and then out. This is the question for this section. And this is all I have. Have a wonderful day.